Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Lisa Coleman, and I'm the Senior Vice President for Global Inclusion and Strategic Innovation here at NYU, and I use she and her pronouns. I hope that everyone is taking very good care. We are thrilled to welcome you to our Transformation Talk series, where we spotlight leaders to learn from their journeys and gain knowledge about how to be agents working toward transformational change across our organizations. In OGI, we engage global diversity and inclusion principles with an intersectional focus on nimbleness, inclusivity, resilience, transformation, growth mindsets, design thinking, and adaptivity in all of our work. Transformation Talks is part of NYU's Be Together initiative centering on innovating, acting, and transforming together. Today, we have the distinct honor to welcome our Dean of the School of Engineering, Dean Jelena Kovačević. Dean Kovačević became the Dean of the NYU Tandon School of Engineering in August 2018. She is the first woman to head the school since its founding in 1854 as the Brooklyn Collegiate and Polytechnic Institute. Since her arrival, she has garnered numerous accolades, including inclusion on the City and State Higher Education Power 50, Tech Power 50, and 50 over 50 lists, as well as the Crain's Notable Women in Tech rankings. She has also been appointed to the American Society for Engineering, ASEE, Engineering Deans Council and Executive Board, in which capacity she works with her fellow deans to provide vision and leadership on engineering research, education, and engagement. Additionally, she is the founder and the co-chair of the Northeast Regional Deans Nerds Council. And I have to say, I love that name. At Tandon, she is committed to getting more women interested in technology. Tandon's first-year class has more than double the average of women in engineering, and a quarter of its faculty are women. But Jelena works to make those numbers grow. She is focused on investing in research. Tandon recorded its highest single-year research expenditures at $52 million and is helping the school continue its historic rise in the college rankings, over 40 spots in the last decade. She also oversees 12 research centers committed to advancing areas such as AI, 5G, cybersecurity, and urban development. During the pandemic, she's maintained hybrid learning, creating in-person environments in Shanghai so students wouldn't fly to the US, so students who couldn't fly to the US could continue their studies. Dean Kovačević received the diploma in an electrical engineering department from the University of Belgrade, Yugoslavia in 1986, and an MS and PhD degrees from Columbia University in New York in 1988 and 1991, respectively. Before joining NYU, she was the Hamschlag University professor, head of electrical and computer engineering, and the professor of biomedical engineering at Carnegie Mellon University. She is the author of several books and award-winning papers, and has also worked at Bell Labs and was the co-founder of the technical VP of X-Wave Forms. Her research interests include biomedical imaging, as well as multi-resolution techniques, such as wavelets and frames. And her many laurels include the IEEE Signal Processing Society Technical Achievement Award. And on a personal note, it is a thrill and an honor to work with you every day as we get to do that here at NYU. So thank you. It's an absolute honor to have you join us here today. So I'd like to begin. So much. Oh, of course. And I'd like to begin today, as I begin all of our transformation talks with our guests, to just talk a little bit about you as a leader. So as an accomplished leader, and as your bio tells us quite a bit about yourself, tell us a little bit about your work in terms of thinking about how you define success and transformation within the context of global higher education, and in particular, thinking about STEM and engineering.
So first of all, let me thank you for the invitation. I'm thrilled to be here, and it's an equal honor and pleasure to be working with you and your team and our teams across the university of making the world a better place. So to answer your question somewhat, I know that this may sound trite, but I really define success as a journey towards a goal that's meaningful and makes an impact on community. So it's not just about you yourself. It does start with a vision and strategy. It is informed by, your own values, my own values, but also the values and aspirations of the people you're leading. And then you have to execute. People often find that as a boring part, but for me, that's a thrill, because that's really where you get creative. You work with people and keep on iterating with everyone. Nothing is going to work on the first try. And the goal is always elusive, like the things we talk about: parity, representation, equity. Any of these, we know we may never achieve them, but these are goals worth having. They're aspirational, and they can really serve as your North Star.
Absolutely. Oh, terrific. Thank you so much. So in our office, as you know, we work to advance a number of skills and thinking about global leaders. And I know that you think about this a lot as you think about new leaders coming out of the Tandon School of Engineering. So tell us a little bit about how you think about some of the core strength and skills that will be needed for global leaders as they move forward, as we think about the future of work, and of course, to remain agile and nimble as they go forward in this incredibly diverse community and world, as you've already highlighted.
It's a great question. I thought about this a little bit, and what I came up with is listening, learning, evolving, and then listening some more. So I'll give you an example. So I'm a woman in engineering, but I never really defined myself as such, because as far as I can remember, I really had the faith in me and support of two incredibly enlightened parents who thought I could do anything. So I did. I also grew up in a different country where girls were expected to excel in science and math. So when I came to the US, I was an adult, and thus sort of, let's say, jabs that would come my way, I didn't perceive as such because I had that protective shield. But also that shield meant I had blinders on in some sense. I saw everything through the rosy glasses, if you want, of my own experience and upbringing. And that really started changing in a much more, if you want, considerable way when I became responsible for other people at Carnegie Mellon. So, having my own group of PhD students, becoming a department head, and, having, 1,100 students to kind of pay attention to. And so listening, that's where listening comes in. Listening to countless stories, both from women and underrepresented minorities, kids from, challenging socioeconomic backgrounds, really opened my eyes. So I started reading a lot. And I hope I have evolved from there, but I still need to learn and listen and evolve as we all do. And then, there is, another event that will precipitate that. And I think this did happen for many of us last summer, during the summer of the social reckoning and the killing of George Floyd. I will be honest and say that many of the things in much of the history, I also knew in a certain way. So reading, watching, listening, talking to other people has been extremely, I think, educational for me. But I think all of this helps, us develop further. And the process will never stop. We will never know enough, but you kind of keep on going in that circle. And as long as you're open and flexible and willing to do that, I think that helps you or all of us develop as people and as leaders.
That's just terrific. I can't say enough. I think that idea of listening, learning, evolving, right? And then listening some more. I mean, that's what we all have to do. I think that's exactly right. And it's one way, of course, exactly to stay nimble and in touch with, as you said in your first comments, to think about community, et cetera. So just terrific. All right. So my next question is, really thinking about this idea of innovation. And of course, Tandon School of Engineering and engineers are in that sort of site of innovation and work in that site a lot. So as the Dean of Tandon School of Engineering, and it was highlighted in your introduction, of course, and as you said, right, the first woman to hold this position, what role do you see as innovation playing in your current work, or as you think about innovation in the work in STEM work in general? And maybe even if you would, you can talk about issues of gender equity, but not necessarily. We know, and this is something that you just said, when we think about future disruptions, we've had COVID, we've had real estate crises, we've had all kinds of things, and we know that there will be disruptions in the future. So talk to us a little bit about innovation in the work that you do and thinking about that idea of future of work and future disruptions.
So I'm just gonna step back just for a second, because this question made me think that we use the inclusion or diversity or equity as very, very broad terms. And within the context of Tandon, I think of it as everyone having been sort of woven into the fabric of Tandon. So if you pull one thread out, everything unravels. Or if you want to, I love thinking and I love doing puzzles. If you feel it as a puzzle, if you take one piece out, there is a hole, right? Leaves a hole. And the fact is that we have these broad categories related to sex and race and ethnicity, but they intersect and they're not as clean cut as we once thought. And maybe when I was growing up, it was the gender was, one of two. And we do know that things are much more fluid than that. And, the generation of my daughter, who's in her 20s and, generations coming, it will identify themselves in many different ways. And so, but even within a specific category, say all those identifying as women, I really can't claim I understand what all women need or feel or think. And I can't claim I understand what all white women need or think, even though I'm white. Even less so, I can't possibly understand what the Black man growing up in this country feels or experiences. I don't have a first-hand knowledge. But again, I will go back to listening. I can listen and I can look, and we can look at how we can interact with and listen to each other. And we innovate to include as many voices as possible. So I think this is the first part of innovation. So we can innovate more in our technical fields, because I think much more so than it was the case when I went to school or even 10 years ago, technical fields, technology in general, people who are in these fields are much more aware of the effect their fields have on the society around them. So we do want to have an impact, but we want to have a positive impact. And that was not, at the risk of being too simplistic, right? It was just mostly you do your technical work and that's it. So that's why we were probably labeled as nerds, right? But that doesn't help. And so in that sense, for example, if I took myself, I cloned myself 8 times, I don't bring anything new to the table. I need people who have a different background, a different point of view, different experience. And we need this to solve almost any problem, whether this be a technological problem or any other problem, because otherwise you're just going to be in this loop in your head, which is, you're looking through the same things over and over again without anybody being able to disrupt this, because, again, you have the same, maybe same upbringing or the same background and so on. So I think having the innovation comes different ways. How do you make sure that you include as many as possible of these? That's a part of innovation, so that you are able to innovate in what it is that we do. So that's my best answer to your innovation question.
That's another great answer. And I have to say, I love that when you said the loop, or like an echo chamber, right? We have to break outside of that, right? We have to break outside of that. And I think all of us, right? To get different people on our teams, different ideas. That's the key to innovation. So, I mean, that's absolutely how we see it. So.
And that's why we ask people, that's why we have to say things out loud, even in our personal lives, so that you're not in this echo chamber of your own head, right? Exactly. So that somebody else can say, hey, what the heck are you doing?
Exactly. That's exactly right. And we often think that we know what the other person's thinking, and we don't. Right? We don't.
Absolutely.
We often don't. No two people are the same. So thank you again for that. Okay, so one of the things that I love about higher education, and I too grew up as a little bit of a nerd. I was actually president of a nerd girl society at one point. So
great.
So a friend of mine asked this question, and she says, what would your 8-year-old self think of yourself today? And given that our audience, as you just talked about, right, we have emerging generations, new identifications, but tell us a little bit, talk to us a little bit about not only what might your 8-year-old self think, but what's some of the challenges and or things that you're most proud of, right, that you've been able to accomplish?
I think that the 8-year-old question is really a cute one, funny one. So I would say, if I want to be completely honest, that I don't think that my 8-year-old self would be that surprised. Vocationally, I was always, I loved math and patterns, and even, the music I loved, it was connected to patterns, and languages connected to patterns. And that's part of my job today. So that's not surprising. And socially, I was always on the side, if you want, of the downtrodden, the kids who were bullied or socially isolated and so on. And I was always involved in my community, whatever that may have been. So I sort of can't really remember myself as an 8-year-old, but I am thinking I must have been a really bossy little kid. In terms of challenges, I'm not sure that, I overcame any of these that I will mention, but I think I learned a lot from them. One challenge for me personally is to be aware when I'm overly confident. I'm not always overly confident, but when I'm overly confident and I feel, okay, this is going great, no problem, with left hand on the wheel, I can do it. It has happened to me in life that this would lead to trouble. So I'm very sort of attuned to that feeling like, oh, don't worry, everything is going great, because you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. So then, I kind of start questioning things. And the other thing, and I think this has to do with how I'm trained, is making decisions without enough data, making decisions in the midst of uncertainty. We don't do our work that way. So, if I do research, I'm going to find every single paper that mentions anything that I'm looking at, and I'm going to run all possible experiments if there are experiments to be run. And, if I'm having a mathematical proof, I'm going to have to make sure that, it really flows. But in the jobs such as this one, as you very well know, I mean, you don't have always all the data. And if you just waited for all the data to show up, you will never do anything. You will be just constantly bogged down, right? Because it doesn't come. And so you have to accept the fact that because you're making decisions without all the data, you're going to make mistakes. I mean, it's, some percentage of time, non-negligible, maybe 30% of the time, whatever, you're going to make mistakes. And COVID was like a perfect example. I mean, who knew? We were making decisions, but we were making decisions based on what we knew, and there was not enough data. And, if you waited a year to get all the data, you wouldn't have moved from the year ago. So I think these are challenges. And if I think what I'm most proud of, this is really not a joke. If I'm proud of something, I'm proud of if I've had impact on people. So, what I most cherish and look at from time to time are the notes, and I call this my feel-good folder. So when I'm down and depressed and so on, I look at notes and emails that I received, especially from students, when they tell me something like that, the time I spent with them, or, the efforts on their behalf, or, the advice I gave them, whatever else that I've done, have somehow changed their lives for the better. And I think that, one day when we are all about to depart this life, these are the things that will matter. Your titles, what you read in my bio, yeah, that's great, right? But that's not what makes you feel good, on a daily basis. What makes you feel good is the feeling that, you're impacting somebody else in a positive way. So that's what drives me.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Thank you. And you're right. That is that is what matters, right? At the end of the day. And I really appreciate you talking about overconfidence. I think a lot of us, right, especially when we get into leadership positions, we can believe in ourselves, and sometimes that's that spots that we can miss. So thank you for
we all
talking
have blind
about that.
spots. Absolutely,
we all do, and so I appreciate you pointing that out. And it's a very important thing for leaders to think about. So, so I can't believe it, but this is really our last question, and so. What is, if any, what is a piece of advice or something that you wish you had been given, or a piece of advice that you were given early in your career that you found useful or you wish was found useful? And then the other question is, tell us something that brings you joy. As leaders, sometimes we're doing the hard work, but tell us something that brings you joy, or something that, is something that is fun for you.
Look, what brings me joy, of course, is, being surrounded by people, my family and my friends, and my team, and, the work I do. But what I think brings me joy, and even more so than joy, it brings me inner peace, which I think we're all in search of, that I am really keenly aware of what's important to me. And I said this before, it's the positive impact on others. I'm really not guided by power, by money, by status, and, people who approach me from that point of view, thinking that they're going to get something, misunderstand me, and then it never really works. And that the fact that I'm not gives me power, actually, and gives me internal power, because I feel I can do what truly aligns with my inner compass. And that's not always, and I don't do it 100% of the time, but I would say, I think inner peace is what we can, maybe outer peace, world peace would be good too, right? The kind of inner peace is most we can kind of hope for ourselves. So that brings me joy too, knowing that I know what's important to me.
Thank you for saying that. And thank you for talking about inner peace and also the positive impact on others. I think as we think about the work, and certainly the work that you're doing, you've had such a tremendous positive impact. And I know that you'll have even more of an impact. So thank you for being with us here today. Thank you to all of the participants. And let me just say this, in the Office of Global Inclusion, we will continue to do a great deal of work focused on global equity, diversity, and inclusion. And we hope that you will continue to join us for the transformation talks, as well as our other programs and events. And please join our listserv if you'd like to get additional information. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.